Hey, so this is Graeme,
And this is Nick.
and this is the Dude, Where's My Code podcast. So, we wanted to spend a couple of episodes actually talking about psychological safety. I think, Nick, we're both really big fans of that topic when it comes to managing. And, just to start that off, the last episode that we ended up scrapping was actually about, what are we calling them? Intelligent jerks.
Right. There's more colorful words for it, but yeah, that's what we started with. Yeah.
Right. So, just having a chat about that archetype that can end up on a team, the impact it can have,
right.
How to identify it, and kind of what to do about it.
That's right. And I think in summary, like we both agreed, level setting expectations is super important. And the other thing is really trying to act fast when you do observe something like this so that you can help correct it. I think that's the two biggest things we both agreed on.
Yeah. So we'll get right into it, but enjoy the first episode in a series of talks, hopefully, about psychological safety.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, so last time we were chatting, actually, we were saying we wanted to dive into psychological safety a little bit. And I think, we actually did record an episode on this one, the notorious episode 3 that we ended up scrapping. But I think the conversation was really good. And I think you and I both decided that psychological safety for us is a really important topic. And we'll definitely have to make more than one video on it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so... I think today we said we were going to just chat about intelligent jerks,
right.
high-performing jerks, toxic genius. I think there's a whole lot of names, probably some we shouldn't use here.
Yeah, there's some that are more colorful that probably people recognize. But I think this particular archetype of person is, something that comes up pretty commonly in the workplace, and it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things that you probably will encounter, in your career at some point. And especially if you're managing teams, being able to, identify this, understand the impact, that kind of thing, and how it relates to psychological safety, I think is extremely important.
Yeah. When we were talking about this last time, I kind of came to the realization, I've been this person. So
you did mention that, yeah.
It's interesting to reflect on it now as someone in a management position, and I can look back knowing what I know and thinking about the signs and be like, oh, yeah,
yeah,
been there, done that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's super interesting, right? And I think being able to touch on that is really important. Like it's a good anecdote to be able to reflect on. So.
So why don't we since people are hopefully listening to this, be clear about what it is?
Sure.
That the archetype we're talking about, right? So I mean, we're what was the joke? Like if you don't know who it is on your team, it's you.
Yeah.
But
sorry,
it's no, just it's individuals on teams who are generally very knowledgeable, no doubt, no questioning of their technical abilities or their competence in whatever area they're in.
Right.
But don't jive well with the team, don't play nicely with others. And ultimately just, it's kind of like, I know best, so we're doing my thing. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I hate leaning on the term soft skills, but this would be a person that you might say they're really good technically, and maybe their soft skills aren't so great, where it's hard to collaborate with this kind of person. You'll hear people describing this as they're steamrolling others. Other people don't get a voice. They can't have any part of the decision making because the intelligent jerk is kind of, they are smart, right? They are very capable and technical, and they end up kind of just, overrunning the other decisions that people are making.
Right.
Yeah. So I think. Oh, go ahead, Graeme.
I think we're probably about to say the exact same thing, which was okay, great. So that's a
right.
thing. That's a trait. What's the impact on, we talked about psychological safety as a theme, but what's the impact of this type of individual on on the team.
Right, yeah. And it's interesting because like I would say probably the most like call it like stereotypical or like generalized kind of way that you see this happening is that you have someone who's, maybe they're pretty senior, and this has allowed them to accrue like a lot of technical knowledge and stuff like that. They have a lot of past experiences, and probably what you end up observing is that, or actually you might not even observe this because you don't know what's happening yet, but the sort of the impact that it's having on the team is maybe more junior members compared to this person. And I don't necessarily mean like they have to be a junior developer engineer or early in career kind of thing. This could literally be senior engineers or other high level engineers or something that are just maybe not at the same level potentially as this person, right?
Yeah. Do you have to be highly experienced or a senior to be a toxic genius?
I don't think so. I think that's probably like the stereotypical situation you see this in, but no, it's a great point because you don't. And that makes it even more interesting because usually this archetype, we see people are extremely technical, they are very intelligent. And that almost like, unfortunately, in different workplaces seems to give them this like excuse to be like that, which is not good. And we'll get into that. But yeah, the impact, right? Like, what does that mean for the other people on the team? What actually happens to a team when you have someone like this, right?
Yeah. Thinking back to the position that I was in where I know now I was
Right.
this person. I joined a team. I mean, I think you know this, right? But I joined the team being given an expectation from the hiring manager. I think at the time they were VP director. I don't remember the exact title, but higher executive hiring me and saying, "Hey, we like your skills. We like what you have to offer, your experience," which at the time felt good, but realistically, it was like a couple years experience in the industry, maybe.
Sure.
And sure, I spoke at conferences and wrote blogs and stuff, but like it was only a couple years experience that I was bringing to the table. Anyway, he said, I want you to come in and bring some of that with you, right? And apply that to the team. And we need to change some of our practices, and hopefully you can help influence that. And that's why I want you here. Right. And he didn't explain that to the rest of the team. So the team thinks, oh, here comes another tester to join the team and join us, the testing team, in what we do. And meanwhile, I'm showing up with this inflated head of like, okay, this team needs to do better and be better. That's what the VP wants, and that's what I'm here to deliver. And so I don't think it maybe took the face of, hopefully, knowing my personality, I don't think it took the face of like steamrolling people in meetings and telling them like, no, I know best, like go away. But it certainly probably had an air of, I know better, or I have more experience, and this is the direction I would like this to go. And so,
and just to like, as a, I am your friend and everything, but I would, if I reflect on this, I can, genuinely say that at the time, I do not feel that it's not in your personality to be like the steamrolling type, but I would say certainly, like, if I imagine other people making, having conversations with you and having to make decisions about stuff, like the expectation from you would have been that if there's something that's being disagreed on, that you probably get, like the final say, like, I'm the person who was brought in to make that final decision and change the direction if we need to, right?
Mm-hmm. Or, allegedly things aren't working perfectly here, so something needs to change.
Right.
And I'm proposing change. So like, let's do it, I think is probably part of how that would have went down. Right. But we're both saying, I don't think I tried to negatively impact anybody, right. But in retrospect, you're doing your thing. No one tells you you're doing your thing poorly because you're probably not actually doing it poorly. And someone comes along who's been told, make this better. Like that can only feel, I don't know. Like, yeah, exactly. I don't know the right way to capture that feeling. Like it wouldn't sit right, and you would confusing, I think, is what it would feel, right? So
Yeah, I think confusing is a great word, right? You'd almost feel like confused, potentially undermined, like maybe frustrated, like aren't I doing these things right? Like I've been trying to make, positive changes and stuff. Yeah.
mm-hmm. so so certainly that is a way that this can arise and this can happen. I do get the sense, at least from some of the experiences I've had, that there are individuals who do think they know better. I'm not even sure that there's probably, hopefully, very few people intending negativity to
Right.
come from their actions, right? I hope there isn't many people out there who are trying to be nefarious actors. But certainly I think there are some people that do come with the attitude of, hey, like, I know better, right? I know this stuff. I'm smart, whatever the adjective is. And so they're coming to the table with an expectation that people will get in line. And I think that is probably the more intense side of the scale of this kind of archetype or behavior.
Right. And you used a word, and I think that's really just summarized like the last couple minutes here. Like the expectation, I think, is an interesting part, because in your situation and what you just described as well, like if someone has a different expectation of what they're supposed to be doing compared to the other people on the team, the expectations of those individuals for themselves, the expectation of this new person or whatever, a person on a team and how they're behaving, you get into this situation where the expectations don't align and you can start to get friction. If you layer on top of that, I think there, and I'm not an expert in this domain, but I suspect there's probably people whose personalities also like kind of amplify some of the effects here, where maybe they are potentially overly confident or other things, and then that can really exaggerate sort of the impact of this. So would you say that's fair?
Yeah, that feels in line for sure.
Right. So when this starts to happen, like what happens to the other people on the team, right? So we're kind of describing this is what the person is kind of looking like they're doing. And you called out, I think, a really good point that it's it's probably not that this person comes in and they're like, hey, I want to make things bad. Like people, we need to assume, lead with best intentions and that kind of thing.
Uh-oh.
Cool. So just to explain, that probably a subtle jump or splice in there. Technology is hard, and apparently there's internet problems. So we're back. We're gonna take another run at this. I think, Nick, you were just talking about the impact of these individuals on teams.
That's right. Yeah. So we're kind of explaining like how like some of the observations about some of the traits these individuals might have, and that it's not necessarily malicious, but the impact on the individuals that are on the team, right? So I think generally what you have happen is that like people are like basically they become almost like afraid to work with this person. They might when it comes to things like pull requests and stuff like that, they might try to avoid getting this person's impact. They stop speaking up, say in team meetings about proposing ideas, because they're getting shut down all the time, and that feels really bad. Like almost like shut down with maybe not really a good explanation, right? So you're like, why am I even gonna say anything?
Mm-hmm. And maybe to describe like a feeling that I suspect, or I have seen, almost a sense of like hopelessness creep into the team, where it's like, well, why do I bother having an opinion or sharing thoughts on this if we're going to go with this individual's thoughts and approaches anyway, because like either they're going to steamroll whatever I have to say, or clearly like management has already gotten behind them and their ideas, and so I'm just here to execute upon that, right?
Right. And that what you just said almost becomes like this dangerous thing where it's like the people on the team start to perceive like if we're always doing what this other person's saying, it seems like, management or leadership, however, things are set up, it's really like they're okay with it. Like it's propagating. Like this person, it's not like they're getting in trouble for it, or like people aren't seeing like this corrected behavior. They just keep doing it. So it obviously must be okay.
Actually, in fact, to the point where it almost is like self-reinforcing, because if you as a manager don't deal with and address this, it kind of looks like you are in support. And so
Right.
someone speaking confidently and being supported in that will continue to do it, and others will continue to see that and say, okay, I guess this person's in charge, right?
Right. Yeah. So, you end up, as you said, like this hopelessness feeling kind of creeps in. Basically, you end up like literally losing productivity and innovation within the team because this one person effectively becomes a gatekeeper of almost all things being done on the team, whether it's proposing new ideas or even, like just maybe it's not something innovative. You're like fixing bugs or something, and it's like this person's like, well, you didn't fix it the way I think we should fix it. Like they become this gatekeeper, and suddenly people just feel like I can't get work done without this person kind of, steamrolling or overriding everything I do. Like it starts to feel really bad.
Mm-hmm. We have talked about this in a variety of situations, even in other episodes of the podcast. And it came back up again when I was listening to a podcast, Dare to Lead with Brene Brown, and she was speaking with Adam Grant and Simon Sinek, two people I am pretty big fan of, to say the least. I think I probably bring them up quite a lot for anybody who's talked to me about leadership in any capacity. But one of the things Adam said in this episode I was listening to was, if you're not helping others, you're not a high performer in a collaborative environment, right? So if we believe that the teams we're building are highly collaborative, high performance teams, you can't, by definition, be a high performer if you're negatively impacting others, injecting toxicity, or not helping others be better. And so what he said in this, in his thoughts on the podcast, which I thought was really interesting, was as team leaders, we have to really think critically about how we define helping others, and then build that into what we expect of our team members and how we support and coach our team members. So one would hope that individuals on our team, even if they take on this archetype, are coachable. If they're not, we'll probably end up talking about that kind of situation where you end up having to manage someone out or exit someone from the team. So if it's not that extreme, if they are coachable, then what they need to learn and understand is actually, what does it mean to be a high performer? And it's not just delivering the best code as quickly as possible as an individual, right? No matter how good you can be, you can only deliver to your theoretical max, whatever that is. Right. But as more and more people come into your sphere, if you can bring them up and positively impact them, that's that kind of like exponential impact that you can have. And that's truly what makes a high performer. So in the case of the competent jerk or whatever this archetype is, one of the things that we should think about as leaders is, nipping it in the bud, and what's the way to do that is steer that in the right direction. And I think the best thing that you can do is provide clarity and guidance in what the actual expectations are, right? And then hope that you have the type of individuals that aspire to perform at their best under the expectations of the team and the organization. If there's a good fit there.
Right. We talk about, like we've mentioned expectations a whole bunch so far in our conversation, right? And you kind of mentioned, high performers will elevate other people, bring them up. And I think what might be interesting actually, and this is I think an opportunity for managers in general, is like, if you have someone like this on the team, they legitimately might think that by criticizing people's work, they don't necessarily think of it like, hey, I'm just like making so and so feel bad about what they've done. They might think that they are collaborating. In fact, they are literally working with other people on things, but the way that they're presenting their opinions and navigating that kind of stuff, it might be really that you have to help align their expectation of like, hey, look, when you're communicating with people like this, you're not actually listening to what they have to say. You're not taking in their perspectives. You are just waiting for the opportunity to drop yours on it. That's not so great.
You might hear, it's not personal, it's just work, right? It's not about them, it's about the end product, and everything I'm doing is making the end product the best it can be. Like those are all things of signs of an individual believing that they are delivering, but
right.
they're probably delivering to the wrong expectations if that's the case.
Right. Yeah. So I think, Graeme, as you were saying, really like taking advantage as a leader to be able to help coach this individual around that kind of behavior, right? So they might think they're doing the right thing. How do you start steering that in the right direction? And it's challenging for sure, right? Because maybe someone's been doing this for a long time and no one has been helping them. This is an opportunity where you can help someone, you can help them improve. And they might not be used to that. So yeah, it might be uncomfortable, but
a lot of teams don't have collaboration baked into the individual performance metrics and measurements, right? I've strived for a long time to figure out how I can measure collaboration. We talked about metrics last week, but in a quantitative way, and without influencing the wrong behaviors. So some interesting things about, how often do people engage in pull requests and whatever, but without incentivizing.
How often you're moving the mouse on their screen for them? Like that's a good metric.
And you don't want people to go and just write a bunch of BS comments for look, I'm getting my numbers by just that's not, you don't want to incentivize that, which is exactly why I've struggled with how to measure this. But I do want to be able to go to people on the team and say, look, the expectation for you at this senior level or whatever level you're trying to aspire to is that you collaborate with others and in a positive way. So mentorship takes many forms, and one form may be you go and you help them grow their knowledge by sharing yours. But it can't be this one-way street of I know best, so just listen and learn and do as I say. That's not really a real mentorship relationship, right?
Right. Absolutely. So, one thing you mentioned too is really as managers, this is something that you want to be able to observe, early and try to act on early as well, right? So being able to get in on that and try to assess if you see this is happening, can you start coaching this person, right? Can you start having conversations with them about, and it could be challenging. Do you need to bring up particular instances? Obviously, you don't want to be saying hey, so-and-so came to me in a one-on-one and they said, nope, they don't like working with you. But how do you want to be able to articulate that, that you are making these observations about kind of impeding the team. And that can be super challenging.
Mm-hmm. It certainly can. There's a framework that a former boss shared with me. I think a few people use it under different names or different acronyms. The acronym we used was SBI, which was scenario, behavior, and impact.
Okay.
I think I got that right. So this is a great situation to be able to apply a framework like this when you're talking to an individual, and you want to kind of coach through growth, changes, improvement, but you don't want it to feel like a personal attack, like it came from somebody else or it's coming from you. And so one of the things that can help ease this conversation is you start by describing a scenario or a situation. Maybe that's a situation. And here, just factually stick to the facts. Here's what happened. And then you can kind of roll into the behavior side of it. So here's what you did. These are the behaviors you exemplified. Or I observed, and then what was the impact of those behaviors on other people? And so really trying to highlight this thing happened, here was your part in it, here's the impact it had on others. And it's a nice way to kind of encapsulate situations without leaning too hard into individual situations. Hey, that meeting wasn't good because you did this thing. And when you start to make it very pointed about a specific example or I don't know, it's a subtle difference to me, but you don't want to give people an opportunity to just excuse away an individual instance. And so, being able to highlight the bigger picture of it's not a bad behavior. It's not oh, you did a bad thing. It's you behaved a certain way and then it had this impact on others around you. And then if you can align that to expectations, right? We talked about performance metrics or whatever. Hey, we expect seniors on our team to collaborate and drive communication in a way that allows the team to be, the most creative they can be, and pursue all avenues to ultimately come up with the best one.
Right.
But in this particular situation, right, you steamrolled the room. Team member X tried to speak up, and you basically shut them down. And the impact is you'll notice that people aren't speaking up in meetings. People are afraid to engage with you or share their own thoughts and opinions. And ultimately, we haven't collaborated on this at all, and every feature has your kind of like rubber stamp or signature on it. And that's not how we want to work.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because you want to be able to bring it up and actually demonstrate to this individual, like, this is the impact you're having, without, immediately having this defense mode come on where it's like, whoa, like, no, like, I don't. And I can think to a time, very early in my management career, I was working with someone, and, they were, older than me, way more time in industry. And I remember having a conversation with someone about, like, and I can't remember the exact conversation, of course, but I remember basically bringing up, like, it's been kind of tricky to work with you. And, like, I think I probably mentioned, like, something like people on the team have said, or they've hinted at, and right. I can remember this person looked at me and they were like, I can't believe that. Like, they were so heartbroken, and I was like, man, like, I'm not, like, I know we need to talk about this, but I'm not doing the right thing here. Like, it would be great to go back and try to, like, I don't know, like, find a better way to coach this person through a situation like that, because I think all the intentions were there, like, positively, right? I think the expectations they had with the team were probably misaligned. And I think if I reflect on my own performance in that situation, I probably, wasn't aware this was happening. And as soon as I started to observe it, I was like, oh, like, I'll just try to correct it. But, I don't think I realized this person probably was set up with expectations in a particular way, and that's why they were doing it.
Nothing like rolling into a one-on-one with, hey, no one on the team likes you.
Well, that's, like, in hindsight, I feel like, that's basically probably how it felt for that person. And I think that what really helped is, like, high degree of trust, right? Like, this person, and I think actually that probably also hurt more for them too. Like, it was helpful because they knew I was trying to help, but the high degree of trust, they were probably like, well, why didn't you say something sooner? And I think it's probably because I hadn't clued into it sooner.
Well, and the funny thing is, the response might be, well, why didn't people tell me? And, like, because they're afraid of you. It's such a hard thing to,
And literally, like, that's part of that conversation. I can remember that, like, why haven't people said anything? Like, this person's so bothered by it, and rightfully so. I had a terrible way to deliver it. But yeah, like, why haven't people said anything? And it's like, because systematically they have been shut down, probably unintentionally by you repeatedly, and they don't feel like they have a voice to even tell you.
It hasn't been safe to speak up, right?
Right.
So, and about technical things or about team things. So imagine something as personal as, hey, I'm struggling interacting with you.
Right. Yeah, it's hard.
When we've talked about this in past, we've both seen, juniors on a team struggling and flailing and ultimately, like, tanking in productivity and probably happiness. And with the removal or correction of the intelligent jerk person behavior, we start to see these same juniors, like, flourish, grow, like, become high performing individuals on the team, some of the best contributors to the team. And so it's a very real impact, and it's very detrimental, to teams and to individuals on their career growth track. Right. It's for me one of the things that I've learned as a manager. I don't want to say zero tolerance. I don't like hard rules about anything. All things in moderation, including moderation, I guess. But, like, one of the things that I read in a book early on that I really, really did agree with was, like, no bad apples, right? If you're trying to establish a certain type of team and a certain type of culture, you can't allow an ongoing tolerance to that, because of your culture becomes your culture. And so right. you don't want
you
to.
don't just say your culture is like, hey, we don't do this, and then you're like, hey, by the way, we have 10 teams with 10 people that all have a person like this.
Right. Or as a manager, like my teams are highly collaborative. I'm like, what do you mean they're highly collaborative? You've got one person driving the show and everybody else afraid to speak up. That's not what a collaborative team looks like.
Right.
Hey, I really believe in the growth of juniors and helping people on their individual career tracks. Well, none of your juniors are able to speak up or learn, and they're all leaving to go to other teams, right? Like the impact is high and felt. And so this is one of those ones that I think it's really important to identify as early as possible when it's happening and very quickly suss out, is the individual coachable, amenable to change, right? Interested in changing this behavior and growing and aligning with the real expectations once they've been made clear? Or is this really the way they want to work? And then, right, then figure it out if this isn't the right team for them, what you're going to do about that.
Right. And I think that's a super interesting kind of situation, right? Because I mean, obviously if you can coach the person and work with them on it, like that's awesome. But as managers, like this is my belief, I guess, but like it's our responsibility to bring out the best in the people that we lead. That's my belief. So if that's the case, if you have a person like this on your team, I don't personally want to approach it like, well, I mean, this person's bad, they suck, like get them out of here because I don't want to deal with crappy people on my team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel I owe it to this person to bring out the best in them. So that means either trying to coach them if I'm able to. It also might mean that the work environment we have, like in the setup that we have, maybe isn't ideal for them. Perhaps if you can explore another team, and I don't just mean like, hey, get this person out of here off my team as quick as possible, but genuinely working with them to see if you can find something that might align better to their situation, their style, right? Like just to give you a super, brief example of a particular archetype, like even more particular than the intelligent jerk, is like I've seen individuals that like to take a much more like academic or theoretical approach to some of the code they're writing. And when they, amplify that through their sort of intelligent jerk archetype, like really, if you could find a situation where that might work better for them, they might not be coming across as such an intelligent jerk to people. It actually might be other people working with them going, wow, like it's so awesome that you could design this perfect system, like that kind of thing. You're giving them an opportunity.
Strong technical leadership in a place where that's what's expected and asked for, right?
Exactly, yeah. So I kind of look at it like, try to coach them. If you can keep great people, like this person's technical and like they can work through this and make some changes, awesome. If not, you want to keep great people, right? Try to see if there's a different team or different opportunity for them nearby in maybe a different domain or different space, right? Unfortunately, if that's not going to align, exiting a person does not, like, I try not to look at that anymore like you're just like, it's the worst thing for this person. In fact, if you're feeling all this friction and other people on the team are feeling this friction, as you try to correct it, this individual might start to feel that friction too, and they might start going, wow, like this is bad. Like they start to lose their engagement, and now even their technical abilities that you've been leaning on and they've been steamrolling, they're not even shining through. So I think that if you have to work with someone to exit them from a team, like honestly, it will be in their best interest to find, you're helping them to bring out the best in them by finding a different opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I certainly think that's something we will dive into, probably even under this kind of umbrella of psychological safety.
Right.
That situation as well. So, I mean, I guess we've agreed for collaborative teams, at least, or teams that you want, as we've described, with everybody kind of being creative, collaborative, working together on kind of the same outcome, and hopefully growing each other as they around them. This is not a good archetype to have on the team. So, in general, I guess we believe for the environments we're talking about, this is not an ideal characteristic, right. and is to be corrected, hopefully through coaching, hopefully through clearer expectations, hopefully through measures that can better explain what about it is negatively impacting and how it's negatively impacting. What are the takeaways for people listening and interested in this topic?
Yeah, I think like something that you mentioned early on that I just want to bring up again is really like, as managers, like think about the expectation that this person has been set up with. So as you're managing teams, right? If you're bringing on people to a team and you do want to be able to say, hey, we want some like bench strength, right? We want to try to improve this area. Make sure people on the team know that. Like try to make it like a collaborative thing from the start. You might think you're setting this person up for like this awesome opportunity, but if the people on the team don't know that, it's not going to be an awesome opportunity for anyone, including you, because you're going to be dealing with all the stuff that we're talking about today. Mm-hmm. So expectations are super important. And I think the other thing, Graeme, that you said is really like acting quickly on this kind of stuff, because the unfortunate, like toxic nature of it is such a detriment to the team. And I can't tell you, enough that like any time that we've tried to correct something like this, we say every single time, why didn't we do this sooner? Every time. Right. So act quick and remember expectations for individuals, and I think that will help a lot, to be honest.
Right on. Yeah, I think I'm in complete agreement with that. I think this is not a rare thing for managers to encounter or team members to encounter.
Right.
And I think really you said it, which is alignment of expectations is probably the best way to move forward from a situation like this, and moving forward and away from it as quickly as possible is the best way to get back to high performing, both
Absolutely.
As individuals and as a team. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Graeme, I love the topic of psychological safety, so I'm definitely pumped to get into more conversations with you about this. I think we've mostly covered the intelligent jerk. There's probably, more things on it we could dive into, but I think, next time we get chatting about this topic, we can try to pick some other aspects. And I think, it's so critical for people going through like their careers. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Appreciate the chat as always.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for listening if you're listening on Spotify, and thanks for watching if you're watching on YouTube. If you can do us a favor and like and subscribe to the channel, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, Graeme, take care and enjoy.
Good night.
See ya.